Luxoria Hotel, a majestic building of Victorian architecture, stood atop a hill overlooking the small town of Ravenbrook. It was known for its ancient charm and rich history, but also for harboring dark secrets that few knew about. On that autumn day, Emily and her husband David arrived at the Luxoria Hotel to celebrate their wedding anniversary. The place seemed like the perfect setting for a romantic getaway. The hotel lobby was filled with period furniture and elaborate tapestries, but something about the room gave off a sense of unease that Emily couldn't ignore. Upon checking in, the receptionist, a stern-looking woman, handed them the key to room 237. "I hope you have a pleasant stay," she said with a forced smile. The couple climbed the wooden stairs to the second floor, where they found room 237. Upon entering, a wave of cold enveloped them, making them shiver. The room was elegant, but the antique decor and mahogany furniture seemed to hide untold stories. While Emily unpacked her bags, David opened the window to let in some fresh air. The view of the city below was picturesque, but the fog that began to form as night fell added a touch of mystery. As the night progressed, the couple began to hear strange noises in the hotel hallway. Shuffling footsteps, unintelligible whispers, and knocking on doors. David, curious, decided to check the hallway, but found no one. Emily began to feel restless and suggested they go out to dinner in town to ease her discomfort. When they left the room and went downstairs, they noticed that the receptionist was no longer at the registration desk. The lobby was deserted, and the feeling of loneliness grew. Emily and David exchanged worried looks as they headed out of the hotel. They couldn't help but feel that something was very wrong with the Luxoria Hotel. Little did they know that this was just the first hint that something dark and mysterious was about to happen. While having dinner at a cozy restaurant in town, Emily and David couldn't help but discuss the strange events that had occurred at the hotel. The staff's behavior and the noises in the hallway had turned their romantic evening into a sinister enigma. They decided to return to the Luxoria Hotel after dinner, hoping to find the lobby livelier and receive some explanation for the inexplicable events. However, when they returned, the receptionist was still absent, and silence continued to dominate the place. They decided to explore the hotel on their own, looking for clues about what could be happening. As they walked through the dark corridors full of old portraits, they began to notice a strange similarity in the images. All the portraits portrayed people with melancholic expressions and dark looks. Finally, in a forgotten room on the third floor, they found an old, dusty diary. The diary belonged to a woman named Evelyn, who had lived at the hotel for decades. Her entries were filled with anguish and loneliness, describing an absent husband and a feeling that the hotel was watching her. As Emily and David continued to read, the lights in the hallway began to flicker and a cold wind blew through the open windows. They felt watched and surrounded by an invisible presence. From the words in Evelyn's diary, they discovered that she believed the Luxoria Hotel was haunted by mysterious entities. She described disturbing visions of shadows moving across the walls and whispers that tormented her at night. Evelyn believed the hotel was a place where tormented souls found refuge. Emily and David began to feel that Evelyn's story was somehow related to the strange events they were experiencing. They decided to look for more information about the hotel's past, hoping to find answers to the dark enigmas that surrounded it. As the night dragged on, they continued to investigate the hotel for clues. They found old documents and guest records that went back decades. Each page seemed to hide unsolved secrets and mysteries. While exploring a dusty room, Emily and David heard a strange sound coming from a dark corner. As they investigated, they discovered a secret passage hidden behind an antique bookcase. The passage took them to a dark, dank basement that was not part of the hotel's normal layout. As they descended the dark stairs, their flashlights illuminated strange symbols on the walls and a heavy atmosphere of oppression. They felt like they were entering unknown territory, and fear began to grip their hearts. In the basement, they found a collection of ancient artifacts, many of them associated with mysterious rituals and occult practices. It confirmed their suspicions that the Luxoria Hotel was shrouded in a dark past, and they could barely imagine what else they would discover in the depths of the haunted hotel. With Evelyn's diary in hand, Emily and David tried to leave the dusty room, but the door was locked. They started knocking on the door and shouting for help, but there was no answer. The feeling that something was watching them grew even more intense. Desperate, They decided that the only way to escape was to look for another way out. As they walked through the dark corridors, unexplained noises and whispers seemed to follow them. Sometimes they glimpsed quick shadows that disappeared into the void. Finally, they arrived at the hotel lobby, but the receptionist was still not there. The feeling that the hotel had a life of its own and was watching them was overwhelming. Emily and David decided to try the phone to call for help, but there was no signal. The hotel was isolated from the outside world, and they were trapped in its dark enigma. With no clear escape options, they decided to return to room 237, where they found Evelyn's diary. The room was now darker than before, and the atmosphere was permeated with a feeling of oppression. Emily continued to read the diary, and Evelyn's words became more intense as she described terrifying encounters with unseen presences. Evelyn believed that these entities were the tormented souls of those who died at the hotel, and that they were not willing to let anyone go. David tried calling reception again, but the phone didn't work. Meanwhile, objects began to move of their own accord in the room, and shadows danced across the walls. The feeling of being surrounded by a supernatural force became overwhelming. The couple was trapped in the hotel's dark past. They knew they needed to find a way to calm the entities and unravel the mystery behind the Luxoria hotel to have any chance of escaping with their lives. Determined not to give in to fear, Emily and David began looking for clues in Evelyn's room and diary that could help them understand what the entities wanted. They discovered that Evelyn had performed rituals to try to calm tormented souls, and these rituals were detailed in the diary. With the help of Evelyn's notes, Emily and David began performing the rituals in a desperate effort to calm the entities. Candles were lit, incense burned, and they recited ancient words found in the pages of the diary. As the rituals continued, the atmosphere in the room began to change. The shadows that danced across the walls seemed to recede, and the strange noises became more distant. Emily and David felt like they were making progress, but the battle was far from over. They knew they needed to continue the rituals to reach a resolution, but the uncertainty about what they would find in the end haunted them. The Luxoria Hotel guarded its secrets jealously, and the couple was determined to unravel the mystery and escape the nightmare they had been drawn into. The rituals continued for hours in room 237 of the Luxoria Hotel. Emily and David were determined to calm the entities and unravel the dark mystery surrounding the place. As the rituals continued, the atmosphere in the room seemed heavier and more oppressive. Eventually, Emily found a passage in Evelyn's diary that mentioned a hidden room in the hotel's attic. Believing that this room could hold crucial answers, the couple decided to face their fears and climb up to the attic. They went up the stairs towards the attic, which was dark and full of cobwebs. When they got there, they found a solid wooden door covered in strange and sinister symbols. David cautiously pushed the door open, revealing a small, dusty room. In the center of the room was an ancient altar, adorned with black candles, and a mirror covered with a dark cloth. The walls were covered in symbols and writings in an ancient and unknown language. Emily began translating some of the symbols, realizing that they were related to rituals of invoking and imprisoning entities. As they explored the room, Emily and David felt a dark presence approaching. Shadows began to move around him, and the air grew even heavier. They realized they were at the heart of the Luxoria Hotel mystery. Emily noticed an antique mirror in the corner of the room, covered with a black cloth. She pulled back the cloth and revealed the mirror, which reflected a dark, distorted image of themselves. They felt that the mirror hid deep and dangerous secrets. They decided to perform one last ritual in the attic room, hoping to release the trapped entities. Based on Evelyn's notes, they recited ancient words and lit the black candles on the altar. The air felt electrified, and shadows stirred around them. Suddenly, a strong wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles and dousing the flames. The mirror in the corner began to vibrate, and slowly the dark surface began to lighten. A shadowy figure emerged from the mirror, a sinister entity that appeared to have been imprisoned for decades. The entity approached Emily and David, its terrifying presence almost unbearable. But instead of attacking them, the entity began to whisper ancient and sad words. The shadows around them began to dissipate, and a sense of relief and freedom filled the air. Emily and David understood that the trapped entity was one of the tormented souls that Evelyn had tried to help decades ago. She thanked the couple for freeing her and dispelling the darkness that had plagued the Luxoria Hotel. With the release of the entity, the hotel seemed to calm down. The heavy atmosphere disappeared, and the strange noises stopped. Emily and David knew that although they had faced a supernatural nightmare, they had reached resolution. As they left the attic, the receptionist finally appeared in the hotel lobby, as if nothing had happened. They exchanged perplexed glances, knowing that the dark enigma of the Luxoria Hotel was now solved, but the price they paid was high. Emily and David checked out of the hotel and never looked back. The Luxoria Hotel would remain a disturbing memory in their lives, a place that held dark secrets and imprisoned entities. As they drove away from the hotel, the couple took one last look at the majestic Victorian building at the top of the hill. The mystery of the Luxoria Hotel had been revealed, but they knew some stories would never be fully understood. They moved on, carrying with them the scars of a night of terror they would never forget.